insurance premium, or maybe to set a little bit of money aside for their kids' college education, they can choose to keep that for themselves. And unfortunately, the handful of those union bosses don't like that very much. Because like most of us, if you can choose, you're going to choose to keep it for yourself. You're going to spend it on your own family, your own resources, your own needs out there. And that for them is really what this is all about. For us, it's about something fundamental as well, but it's not about that money, it's not even about union. I believe what's at stake right now, not just in Wisconsin, but elsewhere, is ultimately about courage. You see, and it's kind of appropriate thinking about being here, not just in Springfield, but being in the land of Lincoln. Because a lot of times in politics, I hear all the time over the years from people who complain to me, it doesn't matter Republican or Democrat alike, I hear voters all the time say to me, why is it that so many people get elected to office and then they fail to take on the tough issues we all know need to be taken on? Why is it? I hear that. It doesn't matter, Democrat, Republican, somewhere in between. I hear that about our state. I hear that about our federal government. I hear about our local officials all the time. Why is it that people get into office and they fail to have the courage to take on the tough issues? In our case, we took on the tough issues. We didn't take them on because of some group or party or anybody else. I took them on for two very simple reasons. One's named Matthew, the other's named Alex. Those are my two sons. Every kid and grandkid in our state, I want to make sure, Antoinette and I want to make sure, just like every other mom and dad in our state, that our kids don't inherit a debt bigger than they can handle. And that they're in a state where someday when they get out of college, they have an opportunity, not a guarantee, but an opportunity to get a job in the state where you love. That's what this is all about. Now, I ultimately believe the majority of people in our state believe the same thing. So I think on June 5th, you're going to ultimately see that when we prevail, I think it's not just a powerful message in Madison, in my state house. I think right here in Springfield. I think over in Indianapolis, and St. Paul, and in Austin, and Columbus, in state houses all across America. It will send a powerful, powerful message, but even more so in the halls of Congress in our nation's capital, Washington, D.C. I think when we prevail, it will send a powerful, powerful message. If you stand up, if you take on the tough issues, if you do what we all know is right and is just and is appropriate for the time, then ultimately there'll be people standing there with you. And it's my hope, being here today, well, not just with those politicians in office in your state capital now, but more so even in the future. Think about the fact that elections are important because the people you put into office, will ultimately make decisions not just for today, but more importantly for tomorrow. That's what we've got to do more about. We've got to spend more of our time in this country thinking about that next generation, not just getting past the next election. Now, I think, again, being in the land of Lincoln, it's very appropriate that we talk a bit about courage, because obviously, probably more so than just about any president out there, Abraham Lincoln had courage, even in the darkest of times. But in the end, because of his devotion to move a united country forward, we ultimately have the great country we live in. And that's why it's moments like that, coming here today, thinking about not just Springfield, but thinking about President Lincoln. Remember, I was in Philadelphia back in September. And for me, growing up in a small town, the son of a preacher, for us, the extended vacations were usually about as far away as our old white station wagon could get in one day and back. So I never got to Washington or Philadelphia as a kid. But I loved history. And I always thought of our founders or leaders in our country as being bigger than life, almost superhero-like. So last September, I had a chance to speak at a Governors Association meeting in Philadelphia. Antoinette and I got up early in the morning. We went over to Independence Hall. Obviously, we saw the Liberty Bell. One of the most inspiring things for me, and why it ties into what I'm talking about today, is I stood in Independence Hall. If anyone's ever been there, you know it's about double the size of this stage up here. It's not very big. And I, being a big fan of our founders, I thought, wow, this is going to be exciting. It was, kind of coming into the enclave of the superheroes I thought it was a kid. You look at the chairs, and they're not much different than the chairs we're sitting in right now. And you see up at the front, there's a desk, and there's a chair with a half-rising sun on it where Washington sat. And you realize it's for ordinary people. Ordinary people who did something quite extraordinary. Didn't just risk their political careers. Didn't just risk their businesses. These were people, as Ben Franklin said, he said, we don't hang together, surely we'll hang separately. These were people who literally risked their lives for the freedoms we hold dear today, far too many of our fellow citizens take for granted. The reason I tell you that is I'm always inspired by the history of our great country. Once our founders back in Philadelphia, people like President Lincoln who came out of this great state, there's so many other leaders along the way, what has made America great, what has made America exceptional, what has made the United States of America arguably the greatest country in the history of the world, is in times of crisis, be it economic or fiscal, be it military or spiritual, what has made America great has been the fact that we've had men and women of courage who've been willing to stand up and think more about the future of their children and of their grandchildren than they thought of their own political futures. Let this be our call to action. Let this be one of those moments in time where not only in Wisconsin or Illinois, but all across this great country, that we stand up and we tell our children and our grandchildren that this is the time when we stood up and said it's time to think about the future, not just about the past and the present. It's time to move our states and our country forward. Thank you for the chance to share, and I appreciate being here today.